All right, so that says we're live. We've run through the intro. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of How I Met Your Mortgage. As always, I'm Adam Smith with the Core Finance Group and Just the Tips Coaching. With me is our marketing director, Jen Waybower. Jen and I have actually had a lot of interaction this morning already, so no need for the usual good morning formalities. And our guest this week, I'm very, very excited to have on the show a good friend of mine, a well-respected colleague, somebody I have an enormous amount of respect for. At least I'm going to tell my audience that. Ben Lavender. Ben, good morning. How are you, brother?
What's up? I'm doing very well, Adam. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the kind words.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure. And I'll have some tongue-in-cheek jokes for you, I'm sure. They'll probably circumnavigate around the words wanker, spotted dick, and now we've pretty much covered the gamut of everything I know about Great Britain. But it is really our pleasure to have you here. I'm glad that we could have you as a guest, and we're going to get to see you next month at our Mile High Mastermind event. Anyway, that's a Just the Tips coaching event for those of you that haven't heard of it as of yet.
Great name, by the way. Mile High.
Yeah, Mile High. Well, it seemed fitting. Truth be told, the first year that we did it, we try to incorporate some really cool social activities when we're not working. And the first year we did it, I think was the first year that recreational marijuana use was legal in Colorado. And we took everybody to a class one night on how to roll joints and sushi.
Nice.
Yeah, it was kind of a fun event. And you're in store for a treat similar to that. But let's not bore our audience with those kinds of things.
I think that's exactly what they want to know, actually.
It could be, no question. So, Ben, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you hail from, how you ended up here, and more importantly, how you ended up in loan originating.
Sure, and feel free, more than free, to interrupt me because I can go on forever. I'm infamous for rambling, but for those of you that do not know, I originally hail from the other side of the pond, London, England. I moved here when I was 14 years old, grew up in Long Island, New York, in a very, very lovely neighborhood. I am blessed to have done so, and basically did some minor sales stuff throughout college, studied accounting, and I was actually going to go and do accounting with one of these big four firms in the city, like KPMG, E&Y, like D&T, but long story short, I met my current branch manager at a family function, because he is my second cousin, and this was just when I was graduating college, and he's like, don't do accounting sucks, at least for me, and I'm just like, come work for me, and I'm like, okay, I'll give it a shot, we'll do a couple months, and after a while, working in the business, I was not good at, I would say I wasn't good at mortgages, but I was never very salesy. I was always naturally very introverted. Even today, I consider myself to be quite introverted, but after being more comfortable and speaking to people and learning more about the business, I eventually felt very, very comfortable, and now I've been doing this for 8 years almost, maybe 9 years.
And all with one company?
Yeah, well, one company, but we recently, about a year ago, we switched to the broker platform, which we're loving, and but before that, same company the entire time, yeah.
Yeah, I remember you describing that to me when we were at that conference in Miami earlier this year. And yes, I can't say enough positive things about being in the broker world. Now, I'm certainly not one to compare because I've never been in the retail world. I've only been on the wholesale side. And obviously you and I are still a very small fraction of what goes on in mortgage origination. But yeah, to be able to have lower rates and costs and specialized service and not be certainly large retail depository type institution where they're dealing with credit cards and car loans and bank accounts and ATMs and 3,000 other products where they are, possibly good at a number of things and not great at any one thing. When you get to focus strictly on mortgage origination, obviously that makes you an expert in one thing without having to worry about all of the others.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun, and what's different for us, I'd say, we're not trying to turn this into a brokers are better.
No, let's not do that.
But it's the main thing. It's just the difference in the rates is substantial. But like these, there are a lot of what we call like small correspondent lenders. Obviously, you're familiar with them, and their pricing is just tremendous. So for us, it's honestly, man, it's like taking candy from a baby. It's so easy.
Well, they've got bills to pay, middle management, advertising budgets, all kinds of things. But yes, you're right. Let's not make this a wholesale versus retail debate. We're certainly not here for that. So let's flash back a little bit to where you started out as a loan originator and carry us through those 8 years. Do bear in mind that our audience is mostly other loan originators, real estate agents, those kinds of things, people that have direct-to-consumer sales gigs on large-scale items. And tell us what your lead generation looked like when you started out, how it developed, what it looks like today, what you see going forward, those kinds of things.
Sure. So starting out, it was basically like any other loan officer, realtor referrals, accountants, financial planners, stuff like that. And then I kind of got just sick of chasing, right, and said, hey, how do I generate my own leads? And then, as you are very well aware of, we studied from a certain social media expert and learned how to generate our own Facebook ads. And what was very, very interesting is that I was maybe 18 months into the business at the time. I got my license 6 months before that. And the primary purpose was to basically build leads that I could refer out to other realtors rather, and exchange that for business, for personal referrals from them, and build a relationship, that kind of thing. So what was funny is that I was just a regular LO, sitting in my cubicle in this big corporate office, and I'm starting to generate these leads, and lo and behold, I'm spending $5 a day on Facebook ads, and I'm generating 8 to 10 leads a day. And with me by myself with no support, I had to shut it down after a week because I didn't have the manpower or the ability. I didn't have any CRM, follow-up campaign, absolutely nothing, or nothing strong to really close it. So eventually, what we decided to do is get a bunch of virtual assistants in the Philippines to kind of follow up on these leads, in addition to sending them out to realtors for them to work. Because at the end of the day is that, mortgages, we love doing mortgages, they're fun, right, at least to us, but what the leads are really interested in are the homes. They don't care whether my interest rate is this percent or that percent. They just want the frickin' house, man. They don't want to deal with me. So the whole thing, get them over to the realtor, and then the realtor would swing them back to us.
Yeah, you're just a vehicle.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, because if I am, this will bring up some really interesting fodder. You're not generating leads in that manner now, I assume.
I am, but I'm being very, very careful about who I partner with.
Okay.
Because the issue that I had is that, and a lot of loan officers, at least in my market, make the same mistake, is that, and that was the mistake that I made, is that I generated those leads in exchange for referrals from realtors, right? Okay. Because I was trying to build up my business. Whereas today, it's really just, I only do it with people that I've been working with and I already have a relationship with, and most importantly, have the ability to follow up and close those leads.
Okay, so let me back up a little bit and discuss something more about the leads, because I think this is something that'll be really interesting to our audience. Obviously, at the time you started doing this, so 5-6 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, advertising on Facebook, doing lead generation on Facebook, doing funnels through Facebook was very, very popular, relatively easy to do. And in subsequent years, the last few, there was a major algorithm shift in Facebook that kind of directed the platform to be more towards friends and family than business. And then obviously we all remember Mr. Zuckerberg having to face a Senate committee hearing, and Facebook then getting very, I don't want to say paranoid, but let's use the word paranoid about fair housing and fair lending. Yeah. And it made it that much more difficult to do any really heavily targeted advertising. So I'm guessing that there was some shift from how you guys were doing it then to how you're doing it now based on those changes. But what looks different today in that model, in the actual advertising, than it did when you started doing it?
I think there are two major differences. One is that, I'm not generating them myself anymore. I pay someone to design the ad. It just takes too much time. We have other things to do, quite frankly, as loan originators. And two, in terms of the targeting, it's more difficult to target by income and like homeowner versus renter and landlord and this and that. That was the major difference. So the way that I was doing it back then as well, which I'm still doing it now with a little bit of tweaking, is that I'll target people by certain lines of employment. NYPD, FDNY, will target, transit employees, because there are a ton of them. What I'll do in addition to that as well is target people that are a close proximity to my office. Because most people, I'd say 99% of my clients, want to meet in person.
Wow, that's an impressive number. Our numbers are nowhere near that. I would say it's probably the opposite.
Yeah, New Yorkers have very little trust in people. They see something online, it's like, it's a scam, this guy is from Britain, he's trying to do my mortgage in London, I don't know where he is, it's weird. So, they all want to meet in person, and look, if that's what they're more comfortable with, no problem.
And meeting with you doesn't make them think it's even more weird?
No, surprisingly not.
Wow, because you're pretty weird.
Yeah, I'm very weird, actually. It's something that happens, no lie, like once a month. So the majority of my clients happen to be Jamaican. I don't go after Jamaican people don't go after me. It's because I'm British and there's history there.
There is.
So before any time I meet a client, again, this happens once a month, they walk into my office and they're like, hello, when will Ben be coming in? And I'm like, I'm Ben. He's like, oh, I was expecting a very handsome 6'2" black man, not a 5'8" short Jew from England. They're always very, very disappointed when that happens.
Oh, I can only imagine. Well, actually, I have met you in person, so I know exactly what they're feeling. And yes, you do look much taller on camera.
I do. That's why I'm sitting.
All right. So after all this time, obviously there's been a shift where generating leads, and that's actually the legit term out of it, from what activity you're doing in certainly that Facebook platform, has probably, I don't want to say diminished, but probably taken a backseat to what you do with repeat clients, client referrals, referral partner referrals, those kinds of things. I'm assuming that that's a big piece of your business these days as well.
Well, my general philosophy, just when it comes to generating leads, is do everything and anything. Like, I want major omnipresence. I want to be everywhere. So, like, I'm doing I've got on my whiteboard, I've got, Google ads, Facebook ads, Zillow, Realtor.com, Trulia, the standard stuff. And then in addition to that, we're working our current pipeline, and our current leads, asking them for referrals, and then the past client database, and then there are obviously the attorneys, CPAs, and realtors that send us business on a regular basis.
Okay.
So it's literally everything.
All right. Well, tell us a little bit about that when it comes to past clients, referral partners. What kinds of things do you do to stay in front of them, to generate leads from them? How do you retain clients that you've closed in the past? Give us a snapshot of what your current I don't want to say lead gen because that's kind of difficult. We're not talking about buying Zillow leads here. But yeah, give us an idea of what your repeat and referral retention looks like.
Well, I'll start off with the leads actually because it's more systematic. So with all our leads, regardless of the source they come from, they'll go into our CRM, which we use BPD, Big Purple Dot, which is good. It's not, fantastic, but it does the job for sure. And then we have, again, these 3 virtual assistants in the Philippines that basically follow up with every single lead, right? Because I don't want to myself speak with a lead that isn't qualified or isn't serious. We have other things to do. And I also don't want my team here in New York to work on those cold leads either, right? Because their time is valuable as well. So basically, the virtual assistant will give the lead a call and spend 5 to 15 minutes vetting them out. What do they want to buy? What do they want? The usual stuff. And then they'll go over, the mortgage-related questions, income, assets, credit. And for those of you who are watching, when I say virtual assistant, it's not, AI. It's a physical person. They're just in the Philippines, right? And they're talking to those leads. And what they'll do, their job is to push and basically transfer the lead over to my team live on the phone.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, because we find that what we used to do back in the day is that they would just email us and be like, call this lead when you can. The problem is that, they won't pick up the phone, or, it takes a week to get them on the phone. So if you just live transfer, they can't really go anywhere, right? They're stuck with you. Not that we're trying to trap them, but we're trying to be efficient here, not just for us, but for the lead as well. And then from there, it's the simple. We'll take an application over the phone, send them a doc list, get a meeting, and all that stuff.
Okay. And what do you think this looks like for you in the next 2 or 3 years? Let's assume that there aren't significant changes to social media platforms and algorithms, so on and so forth. Do we continue this trend? Do you see something on the horizon that's going to be monumental in direct-to-consumer, large-ticket item lead generation? What do you think the future holds?
I think there's going to be a lot of AI, involved in vetting out these leads. Something that I'm playing with currently, Adam, you may be familiar with this, and what's funny, I was thinking of HomeBot because I got HomeBot over the weekend, but what we'll do now is that the leads will basically talk to our AI in Facebook Messenger,
right, and
the Messenger will kind of vet them out. I think it's going to go in that direction, but to a much more impressive degree, where it's going to be audio, it's going to be AI that can actually speak to people, which they already have apparently. Apparently the technology is so advanced, we don't even realize it. So I think that's where, that's going to go as far as lead gen goes, and it's going to save a lot of costs, especially for us as lenders, right? Because if we've got AI that's, a tenth of the cost, fingers crossed that is a tenth of the cost, it's going to save us a lot of money.
I would agree, and I do think that the technology exists, and I try to field telemarketing calls when I can, just because these may very well be people who, for those of you watching, these may be people in your market that need to buy, sell, refinance. Never hurts to have that conversation. And if it's a live person, they may really have mad phone skills that might teach you a thing or two about how to talk to other people on the phone. And the really slick AI calls, even I have a hard time vetting whether or not it's a real person. It takes me a number of questions and answers to figure it out at this point. So there's no question that does exist. It's coming. And yeah, for the small operation like yours, mine, a ton of small real estate teams, car salespeople, whatever the case may be, it will exist for them in the not too distant future as well.
Cool.
So
on our retirement plan.
Right. So Ben, I don't know if it's you avoiding the subject because, video work is hard when you're ugly. I get it. But you, but you've started doing some really badass videos.
Oh yeah.
I have a couple of critiques, and you and I will talk about that when you're here for our event next month. But tell us how that started, where you're gathering content. I mean, for those of you that haven't seen some of these videos, maybe I'll have Jen go track one or two of them down off your Facebook page and post them into the comments for the video here for our live video. But they're fantastic, and I can't tell if it's the content or if we just love listening to your British accent or what the case may be. But tell us how you broached that, what you're doing about content. Certainly tell us what you're doing with video equipment.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up because it completely skipped my mind. So I wasn't avoiding it. The reason is because I don't consider it lead generation, which maybe I should.
It is. Absolutely you should.
Yeah, I mean, I consider it more branding. I mean, it's funny because I actually got 2 refis out of it that very day. So
but we're not considering it lead generation.
We're not.
Okay.
Not. Because, well, those videos tend to get me people who are warmer, who are more ready. So they're like hot prospects, whereas like cold ads and stuff, I don't loop it together because the quality of the people that I get from it is higher. But going back to what you were saying before, like how it came about, I've been planning, no lie, and this is my own procrastination, of doing these types of videos for like 2-3 years. And I couldn't get into a flow, and then all of a sudden, we just, we started doing one. I had an idea. So I said to myself, what's something that I'm comfortable with doing is I am comfortable with video. Right, and what's the other thing that makes me stand out is that I'm British, right? I just took that as an advantage. So I'm like, use your voice to your advantage, Ben. And then how can we double that up? It's like, your favorite British mortgage broker. That's good branding. And the key word is favorite, right? Because how many British mortgage brokers are there in America? There's probably some, but not many. So it's just ironic or my cold humor.
I'll bet it's very few, and yes, I smell what you're cooking.
Yeah. So, the whole thing with the videos is to make them, again, mortgages are boring. They are super boring. I even tell clients I had one in my office. I'm like, we're doing a 1-hour consultation, and I'm like, to be honest with you, this is going to be the most boring part of you buying the home. It's you sitting here with me, which is great. Right, but the whole thing is trying to make the videos somewhat entertaining, and quite frankly, I don't know another way how to do the videos, unless I just stand here and say you should or shouldn't use, or sit here and say you should or shouldn't use Credit Karma for this reason or for that reason, right? That's boring, that's not engaging. Me smashing my employees over the face with a steel chair is really, really entertaining.
It was. We were, and who doesn't want to do that to their employees? Yeah. I'm kidding, Jen.
No, he's not.
No, he's not. Okay. So give us some, now we know content is king. For those of you watching, when you're going to do video work, whether it's live, whether it's in an open broadcast system like what we're doing here and almost fooling social media into thinking it's live, or if you're going to do high production video, studio, chroma key, lighting, audio, editing, the works, content is king. There's no question about it. Ben's obviously covered that. He wants to make sure that we all know who he is and what he does. Those are the two most important. That's why the video actually is lead generation. You're getting across who you are and what you do. Those are two important things. For all of you watching, that's all that matters. Make sure everybody knows who you are and what you do. But give us some idea of what you're using, camera, microphone, those kinds of things. Obviously, there's some editing going on. Are you doing this yourself? Are you farming it out? Give us the logistics.
Okay, so I have a videographer that comes in and does it.
Okay.
What camera equipment he uses, I don't know, but I do know that it's expensive. It's probably somewhere to like $500 to $600 for the camera, I think he was saying, which, I mean, is or is not expensive depending on who you ask. And then I bought, per your recommendation on my first video, I got a microphone. Right, because my first video was very weak on the audio. So, I mean, that cost $50, you know, and then a couple other pieces of equipment was like another $40, and that's it. It's actually not that expensive to run.
And what did you pay the videographer?
Depending on the complexity of the video, it cost me anywhere from $200 to $400 a video.
So you might be in all told for $500 on one of these, and one of them you've already turned 2 refis off of?
Yeah, and that was just from last week's video with the whole, you know, rates of lowest fudge video.
Right.
Right. The other ones, I think I've got 2 or 3 more before I got, you know, maybe a bunch of purchases from those, or, you know, deals that are serious and in the pipe.
I really hope our audience is paying attention here. For those of you, video work is not difficult. Ben is the exact example of what just about everybody does with the, thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it and having a, an analyzation paralyzation. Analysis paralysis, that's the term. Obviously, we're big supporters of taking imperfect action. Just start doing these things. They'll get better as time goes on. But literally, you guys just heard Ben say for 2 or 3 years, he sat on this and eventually brought it into fruition. And it is generating good business for him. So I hope you guys are really hearing what Ben has to say there.
And also, it's fun. Like, I know it sounds corny, but it doesn't feel like work. It really doesn't. It's like, it's something I look forward to now every week, because I shoot them every Tuesday or Thursday afternoon, and I cannot wait. Like, tomorrow, to give you a preview, like, I'm doing it on online calculators, like how clients use online calculators and the payment is wrong. So I'm going to be, like, smashing a bunch of calculators in my office. It's going to be fun.
That will be. And
what a lot of people probably assume as well that have watched the videos is that I have some type of anger problem because I keep smashing things in the video, which may or may not be true, actually.
So parts of that I would agree with. You'll see it next month, but we keep a full studio in our office. 4K, wireless audio, chroma key, lighting, the works. And the work that we do in the studio isn't lengthy. Yeah, it takes me a few minutes a week to bang out a script. It takes me a few minutes a week to shoot the raw video. It takes me a few minutes a week to collect the assets that we're going to use in those videos. And Jen has probably yelled about this at me before, that I could farm out the video editing, and I don't, because I love doing it. I really enjoy, and when we're done with our live show here, Jen will start posting the weekly video blog for all of for our entire audience. And I love doing the video editing. Yes, I could probably find someone to do it. And our rule here at Just the Tips is if you can find somebody to do it 80% as well as you can, let them do it. 80%. And I would have an extra hour or 2 a week, no question, although I do get up early Saturday mornings and sneak down to my home office and get it done there. But I love doing it. It's just fun for me. I can't give you any kind of ROI on whether or not spending the time doing the editing provides any benefit for me, if it's time well spent. But like we tell all of our coaching clients, if you guys get to a point where you're doing this right, you're only going to do things that you either love to do or make you a ton of money. And if it doesn't fit into those 2 categories, pay someone else to do it.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. All right, so Ben, we do get a lot of consumer viewership. Do we get a lot of consumer viewership out of New York? That I can't really attest to. But you may be able to just retrieve phone calls so people can hear your voice, because, you know, that accent. And Ben on the phone, for those of you watching, is way better than Ben on video, because look at him. Okay. You don't have to see him. You just get to hear that great accent. So, Ben, give us the highlights. How do we reach you? What's best? Phone number, email, social media, text, whatever.
Best is always call or text, and my cell, which is very, very catchy, is 917-670-7878.
Oh, that is catchy. We could turn that into a jingle if we put a little bit of work into it.
I'm not going to do it.
Okay. No singing. Stop it.
All
right. Jen, are we missing anything from you that you want to ask Ben about? Although I know you're going to hang out with him next month as well.
Yeah, I think I'm good. Thank you, Ben.
All right. So, Ben, thank you so much for joining us. Those of you watching, thanks for tuning in. For those of you watching in syndication, thanks for watching as well. If you guys would like more information about Just the Tips, a copy of my book, Just the Tips,
I have that book.
Ben has that book.
Yeah.
He hasn't read it yet because he's learning how to read, but he's got it.
I'm trying to read American English. It's taking time.
I should have written it in the Queen's English. Got it.
You should have.
All right. Use our text code at the bottom of the screen. You can text TIPS to 63566, and it'll ping you back all kinds of good stuff that way. Ben, don't go anywhere. I want a few more minutes of your time. I'm going to run our extra, and we will see you guys next week. Later.
Thanks, guys.